Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mental Health Policy Pathway webinar from Committee for Children. This is one avenue to social emotional learning and child protection in the Northeast states. So I would love to hear where you are tuning in from in the Northeast of our country. And I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Kate Tobias. I am the Senior Education Partnerships Manager for the Northeast, so I get the distinct pleasure of going out into schools and districts bringing social emotional learning, child protection, and bullying prevention programs to your communities. And I am with my colleague, Catherine, and she's going to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Seibel. I'm the Legislative and Policy Analyst here at Committee for Children. I come from a direct service background in the field of social work and over time have moved into policy and advocacy. So in our department, we track bills at the state and federal levels, and we'll chat a little bit more about that in a moment.
Great. Thank you. So just to give you a little bit of a background about who we are at Committee for Children, as many of us know, or many of you know us as Second Step, and that's the program that we create here. But our organization is a nonprofit organization out of Seattle, Washington, so all the way across the country from you. And we have a couple kind of arms, I guess, if you will. So our mission in general is to foster the safety and well-being of children through social emotional learning and development. But we also do an incredible amount of advocacy work here, which Catherine is going to talk about at the state and the federal level for policies and laws that support social emotional learning in schools, preventing bullying, and protecting our kids. So with that being said, we are celebrating 40 years this year. Very exciting time at this organization. And every year we reach about 15 million students with our products. So again, most people know us as Second Step, which encompasses social emotional learning, bullying prevention, and child protection. We are in 70 plus countries, so a lot of work globally as a global nonprofit, and then of course in all 50 states within the United States. So very exciting work that we're doing and we continue to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is just introduce you to social emotional learning, and this is going to play in the bottom right-hand side of your screen.
There's a lot of talk these days about SEL, social emotional learning. But what exactly is it? Social emotional learning is the process of learning social and emotional skills, and it's just as important as learning reading or math. This learning process is most effective when it begins early and continues through high school. Social emotional skills are essential for success in school, work, and life. With SEL, students learn to manage their own emotions and behaviors, have empathy and show care and concern for others, solve problems effectively, make responsible decisions, and maintain healthy relationships. Students learn to recognize what's happening inside them and to be aware of their emotions, which helps them deal with strong emotions and impulsive behaviors. It helps them stop, take a breath, and think about a situation before acting. Students learn to identify others' emotions and perspectives, which helps them empathize and show compassion, no matter who they are or what their background is. It's not difficult to imagine how this is important in the classroom and in life. Students learn to solve problems in peaceful ways and communicate assertively about what they need or want. This helps them get along with other students and get the help they need from adults. When students learn to make responsible decisions about their lives and their future, things can turn out better. Research shows social emotional learning makes a difference. Students who participate in SEL do better academically, have improved attitudes and behaviors, and act in delinquent or disruptive ways less often. In the United States, students with strong social-emotional competence are twice as likely to earn a college degree and nearly 50% more likely to graduate from high school and have a full-time job by age 25. Just as important, students who are socially and emotionally competent have more friends. This means they're more likely to feel connected to school and do well, and less likely to be left out or bullied. Simply put, by participating in social emotional learning, students learn the skills to succeed in every facet of school, and the rest of their lives.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to that. So that I share that with you for a couple of reasons. Obviously, just to kind of level set the presentation in terms of social emotional learning and what that is, but also as a resource for you. So this video can be found on our YouTube channel at either the Second Step YouTube channel or Committee for Children, just as a resource again for anyone who doesn't necessarily know what social emotional learning entails, what it means, why it's so important, and that can be a decision maker, parents, teachers, anyone. So please feel free to share that far and wide. And just a little bit more about what we're looking for in terms of social emotional learning and the importance. So improved positive school climate. You all know what it feels like when you walk into a school and the students feel safe, they feel supported, the teachers are happy, the staff is happy. So we know what that feels like, so we want to be able to support that, and social emotional learning can help with that work. Peer relationship, school connectedness, we want kids to come to school, and ultimately academic achievement. There is some strong support for students who are learning explicit SEL skills that do better academically. And then on the flip side of that, having fewer problem behaviors, instances of emotional distress and crisis, and then, of course, incidents of bullying as well. So, of course, we know that our classroom can be derailed very easily, and so having fewer of those investigations would be very helpful for all involved. And so just some skills for life, just some research behind our product and some studies that have been done. This was done by U.S. News and World Report of what employers were looking for in their students. And if you look at this list, there are 10 things on this list, and 6 of the 10, and I actually believe that kind of 10 out of 10 really have to do with key social emotional skills in people and humans. And so ultimately, we want our kids to have a job. We want our kids to be successful in life, and not only just school, but in life in general, and put a roof over their heads and all of those things. So really teaching social emotional learning is key to them being successful in life. And then we also partner with an incredible organization called CASEL. I hope you have heard of the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They are a think tank, nonprofit organization out of Chicago. And they're one of the things that they've done, and of course they advocate for federal and state laws and all the things, but one of the biggest things that they've done and what they're known for really is their 5 core competencies: self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. And so our kindergarten through grade 5 program, or actually our pre-K through grade 5 program, calls out these 5 core competencies in the different components of our program. And so those you can see on this slide. In terms of self-management, you'll find that in the Brain Builder games, in some of our units, and just overall, you can find that information online and then also on this slide as well. And then we just want to kind of touch on how Second Step, or how social emotional learning, can really complement and support all of the work that you're doing in terms of alignments to trauma-informed work, restorative practice work, the whole child. Some states have SEL standards in your state, and we have alignments to those that I'll show you in just a second. Second Step in social emotional learning is aligned to the National Health Education Standards, Head Start, all of the above. So anything that you're doing in terms of helping your students to be successful can be complemented with a social emotional learning program, including like your equity work in terms of that as well. So I just wanted to call out one state, New Jersey. Their school board association put together a task force on mental health findings, and they have found that implementing a social emotional learning program can ultimately help the mental health of your students. And so they put this group together, and this link is on here. And when this webinar is done, you'll get a follow-up email with a PDF of this presentation. And I encourage you to look on this link, especially if you're in New Jersey, to find out what their distinct findings were. There were I think like 70 of them. There were a lot. So it would be really helpful in your state to look at this, and they did some amazing work. And just with that, also, I just mentioned the states with SEL standards: Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and West Virginia, at least in the Northeast territory. These are the states with SEL standards, and that we have an alignment chart to them in terms of how you can align our social emotional learning program to your state standards. And some of these states have mandated that there be a social emotional learning program in your schools. Some states have not. So I encourage you, again, when you get that PDF, to look at these alignment charts and see if they can fit your needs. And these are really helpful if you're applying for a grant, looking for funding, those kinds of things, to be able to call out specific areas of where a program might align to your SEL standards in your state. So with that being said, we are going to talk about the policy pathway and what's going on in your states in terms of policy. So I will hand it over to Catherine.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. So today, I will be explicitly talking about SEL, child protection, and mental health, and how mental health can act as this pathway through policy that helps to promote and facilitate positive and safe school environments. But before I get started, as a forewarning, I will be talking about child sexual abuse at some points in the presentation. And I want to recognize how rampant this trauma is. And so if you are affected or feel triggered by this information, these are lines of support you are welcome to reach out to at any time. There's a national Hope Line network, easy crisis text line, text home to 741-741, or mentalhealth.gov. It's a great support and offers a lot of information and service referrals. So these are here if you ever feel like you need them, and you're welcome to reach out. So let's dive into our agenda. Policy sets the framework for the programs you may already be implementing in your schools, programs that support student well-being. And so we'll discuss how the interconnectedness between mental health, SEL, and child protection can be used to leverage state policy that fosters safe and supportive learning environments. We'll examine the trends coming from legislation across the states, discuss mental health as that policy pathway, and take a closer look at legislation in your region. And then finally, we'll start to consider what potential next steps might be. So, take a moment to reflect. What do SEL, mental health, and child protection programs look like in your schools? Ideally, SEL and child sexual abuse prevention are all a part of a comprehensive support on a continuum of care. And this is because these are often interconnected issues rather than being discrete, and they all play into this role of a child's well-being and learning experience. These programs that treat these topics are particularly effective when implemented at the Tier 1 level, focusing on prevention and access to all students to be supported in the promotion of their mental health and well-being. So, to promote mental health or wellness in the classroom contributes to and improves the learning experiences for your students. And there's a great body of research, as Kate mentioned, that shows that SEL positively impacts student mental wellness. And policy that acknowledges or doesn't acknowledge these interrelated aspects can impact the framework for the way that practice and programming shows up in your school. So, for example, piecemeal policies tend to create fragmented programming. So if policy addresses the interconnectedness of these issues on that continuum of care, it provides a stronger framework for support for your students. So how are states doing in the realm of SEL policy? The blue states indicate legislatures that have introduced SEL through bills that we're tracking in 2019. And as you can see, most states have addressed SEL in some way, and there's quite a variety to how they're doing this. Child sexual abuse prevention has also been addressed in 2019 legislation, but less so. It tends to be included in health instruction and teacher training. And this may be due to the intention that advocates such as Erin Marin are putting on these issues. So there's this more of a push to include prevention through instruction. At this point, 37 states have adopted some type of Erin's Law legislation, and 13 states have introduced or will be introducing this kind of legislation in the upcoming session. And it's important that child sexual abuse is addressed. Child sexual abuse is common. It has serious implications for those that have been infected. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 20 boys report having experienced sexual abuse or assault before the age of 18. There's long-lasting effects on the mental health of children that experience sexual abuse, such as the development of a mental health condition like depression or symptoms of PTSD. And research has shown that the best way to prevent abuse is through education and skills training for adults and kids. One way that Second Step works as an effective strategy for prevention is by developing those SEL skills to mitigate the development of perpetration and empower kids. And studies have shown that increasing disclosure rates, which can be done through creating an empowering environment and skills for students, can really raise their self-esteem and can deter perpetrators. Recently, trauma-informed approaches, restorative practices, and training for school resource officers, or SROs, has also been seen in proposed legislation across the states. So some examples in your area are in Massachusetts. A bill was introduced to limit SRO employment to 1 for every 7 mental and social emotional health support personnel hired. In Connecticut, restorative practice and trauma-informed approach trainings are included as strategies to improve climate through a school climate improvement bill that passed. If you're interested in looking into that, that's House Bill 7110. And then Maryland passed a bill that addresses restorative practices, and I'll chat a little bit more about that in a moment. These trends may be a response to recent school violence crises. It may be in part due to more attention being paid to research that really demonstrates the wide range of adverse effects that come from experiencing trauma. And just this morning, I read a resolution introduced in Pennsylvania that recognizes the harmful effects of trauma and ACEs on kids.
That's great.
Yeah. So these are areas of policy that align with and support SEL and child protection, particularly through this mental health pathway. So you may be wondering what this mental health pathway is. So essentially, mental health has provided this pathway through policy that can strengthen and offer opportunity for SEL and child protection implementation. States that use this policy pathway establish a framework for support in different ways. And so first, there's this big umbrella of school-wide efforts that some policies may fall under. For example, mental health support in school-wide safety plans can include SEL. Strategies for positive school climates that foster mental wellness have been seen to include SEL, trauma-informed approaches, and primary uses of restorative practices. And then mental health curriculums have also been a space to include SEL and sexual abuse prevention instruction. In regard to educator training, both SEL and child protection may fall under educator training requirements, and this is another area where you also often see the inclusion of trauma-informed practices and training. Many bills have proposed increasing school mental health providers, and these are professionals often tasked with providing specific SEL support or specialized care. And finally, multiple states are increasingly introducing bills around suicide prevention, in which SEL may be a potential strategy for primary prevention. So let's take a deeper look into what's happening in this policy in your region. Policy that addresses SEL can occur through a variety of avenues on this mental health pathway. The legislation that I'll talk about certainly doesn't cover everything that's been introduced, but it will give you some of the highlights for SEL legislation that relates to mental health. So first off, Connecticut now requires local and regional boards of education to develop safe school climate policies. It establishes an SEL and school climate collaborative that will monitor local boards of ed improvement efforts, identify best practices, and direct resources to support SEL and positive school climate initiatives. It also tasks the DOE with developing a social and emotional learning assessment tool, among a few other provisions. Connecticut also passed legislation to adopt guidelines for a comprehensive counseling program, which includes that school counseling programs must ensure that all students have access to and are provided social and emotional programming. Maryland passed legislation to require the State Board of Ed to assist with implementation of the guidelines for discipline in public schools that they will later soon establish. The county boards of ed will adopt regulations that create an atmosphere necessary for effective learning, and this includes the primary purpose of any discipline measure to be rehabilitative, restorative, and educational. So the State Board of Ed will provide technical assistance and training to county boards of ed regarding the use of restorative practices on request. And here it's important to note that SEL is explicitly included in the legislation as a restorative practice and approach. Both Maine and New Jersey enacted legislation that requires mental health instruction in health education. And depending on these states' mental health definitions, there's definitely potential to include SEL instruction in this. Both states explicitly focus on education that connects the physical to mental health. Pennsylvania provides that the the legislation that passed in Pennsylvania provides that the DOA is responsible for encouraging trauma-informed integration into curriculum and professional development. And each school entity must require 1 hour of evidence-based training on trauma-informed approaches for educators. I also want to point out that grants under the School Safety and Security Fund will now be made available to school entities that plan to integrate trauma-informed approaches. And then finally, Rhode Island will develop state standards and curriculum frameworks that reflect a sensitivity to student learning needs, and this can include social-emotional factors. Now, I would be curious to know what child protection programs look like currently at your schools. In policy at the state level, we're seeing a trend in introducing prevention instruction in health education and teacher training. And as I mentioned, this is likely due to the Aaron's-type law legislation that we're seeing. So there's pending funding in Massachusetts, and this would provide for child sexual abuse prevention. It allocates $975,000 for evidence-based, adult-focused child protection initiatives to provide technical assistance to schools. Massachusetts also introduced legislation to integrate child exploitation awareness education into their health curriculum for grades 2 through 8. But this has not made a lot of movement. I think the last action happened in July, so it's definitely worth poking into and seeing if further movement can happen. And then New Jersey created a task force within the DOE on child sexual abuse prevention, and now mandates child abuse and sexual abuse training for all candidates for teaching certification. And then lastly, New York students in K through 8 in all public schools will receive age-appropriate instruction on sexual abuse prevention. So such programming will be designed to educate students, parents, and educators on prevention, and will be designed to provide awareness, skills, information, and really just get at the holistic support and prevention. And finally, Pennsylvania introduced legislation that would include age-appropriate instruction on healthy relationships in public school sexual health education. So at the elementary level, instruction would include topics regarding friendship and good touch versus bad touch, which this is slightly antiquated language, but it really does get at cultivating safe boundaries for kids. So I can understand this is quite a bit of information, and Committee for Children can be a policy resource, and we're here to support you. So one of the first steps in moving this needle is staying up to date on legislation, and you can do this by going to our website. It's listed right down at the bottom of your screen. We also have information on our website regarding our coalition activity, sign-ons, and we'll often post action alerts at key times for you to connect with your legislators on advocating to move bills. But again, I just really want to reiterate that we're here to support you in your work, and so at any time you can feel free to reach out to me or the department, and we're here to support. So with that, I'm going to give it back to Kate to tie this legislation and practice together.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. So much information. And one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to do this webinar was because there is so much going on in your states in terms of child sexual abuse prevention, in terms of social emotional learning, standards, laws, initiatives. A lot of those mandates or initiatives are not funded, which is the hard part, we know. So again, on our website, there's a lot of support in terms of grant writing toolkits, in terms of how you can just get support from us. And you'll see our contact information at the end of this presentation. And we really encourage you to reach out if we can help in any way to get these programs or to get support to you in any capacity in terms of supporting your students and having impact on your students for them to be successful in school and in life. So with that being said, how to tie this together. So Committee for Children can help support the whole child in the classroom via implementation. So you saw in a lot of these initiatives and a lot of these laws that are waiting to be passed, that are around, that are already passed, or SEL standards, that you are noticing that SEL is a critical building block. So if you are able to implement a school-wide social emotional learning program, you will ultimately have students with stronger social emotional skills, adults who model those positive social emotional skills. Everything's building on each other to improved relationships, increased sense of safety and support, and a more positive school climate, as I was talking about at the beginning of this presentation, in terms of what that feels like when you walk into a school and you want to be able to walk into any school that you would send your child to. That's the feeling you want to get, is that everybody's safe and supported. So again, just touching on a great resource for you is the CASEL guide. And this is a guide that talks about researched, vetted, evidence-based programs that can support your community. They provide a systemic framework for evaluating the quality of social emotional programs. So we encourage you to find something that is going to work for your community. Obviously, we can support you in that. And then program. And so I just want to share with you a video. And so here you go.
Children grow from the inside out, and our Second Step program helps them become their best selves. Rooted in research-based social-emotional learning, our program helps foster a foundation of empathy. It helps children sort through complicated emotions, manage the strong feelings we all have, make sound decisions, and learn the art of focus. All with a program that's easy for teachers to use and helps them make a difference in kids' lives. We don't just help children become better students, we help them become better people so they can create a better world.
So just so you know, and we'll touch on our programs a little bit here in this section of the presentation, what we've done is we've designed a universal classroom-based program that promotes social emotional competence and self-regulation by decreasing problem behaviors and increasing student school success. So the social emotional learning program and our bullying prevention and our child protection program are all designed to be a universal program. So if you are using a RTI, PBIS, MTSS continuum, that triangle kind of approach, know that this is your tier 1 intervention. And so it's designed to be taught to every student. And so just looking at what we offer here, we have our kindergarten through grade 5 suite of materials. We also have an early learning program, and we also have a middle school online digital product, which I'll show you in just a second. But the K-5 suite touches on social emotional learning. I feel like a broken record in saying these 3 titles over and over again, but social emotional learning, bullying prevention, and child protection. So we really want you to start as the foundational piece of social emotional learning. And then once that is going, potentially adding bullying prevention and or child protection, or starting with child protection and then adding the other pieces, because students need all of it. And so, and obviously varying laws and varying initiatives throughout the states are calling for different programs. So however we can support you, we are happy to. So with that being said, our early learning through grade 5 program touches on some pretty key skills in terms of social emotional learning. The skills for learning, so foundational skills like assertiveness skills, listening, those executive function skills like inhibitory control, memory. So it starts with those foundational skills and then explicitly talks about empathy, teaches kids empathy, understanding and feeling what someone else might be feeling. We all feel strong feelings in our bodies, so emotion management is a unit in the social emotional learning program, and how to manage those, how to calm down all of those strong emotions so that you can focus on the task at hand, and then ultimately problem solving. Wouldn't it be amazing if some of the problems that students have during the school day that derail a classroom can be solved on their own? And so without derailing the classroom or without the investigation or all the things that go into whatever those problems might be. So really explicitly teaching students how to problem solve on their own. And then those additional units, the bullying prevention unit is designed for K-5. So explicitly teaching kids how to respond, how to report, where to report, when to report, defining what bullying is for K through 5, and it's all developmentally appropriate for that grade. And so touching on that in terms of child protection is early learning through grade 5. Again, developmentally appropriate for pre-K students all the way up through grade 5. And it's a general safety program in addition to child sexual abuse prevention program. So it's kind of all-encompassing. And then both of those units, and I'll touch on this in just a second, but both of those add-on units have an extensive training component to it in terms of every single person in your building speaking the common language of how we prevent bullying, how we protect our kids. So just some information about our programs. And then our middle school program is a fully digitally delivered curriculum for grades 6 through 8. So we define middle school as 6th through 8th here at Committee for Children. So what you're teaching is explicit, again, social emotional learning, mindsets and goals, values and friendships. We don't define values for the students, but how those values can play a role in all of the relationships you have with adults, with other students, with anybody in your life. Thoughts, emotions, and decisions. We all know in middle school, lots of things are a big deal. Lots of things, lots of emotions, big decisions, big thoughts. So how to manage all of that, how to handle all the things that are changing in your bodies and changing in your relationships. And then serious peer conflicts, because I like to call this unit drama, but this unit is about really serious to them and serious to things going on. And how do I navigate all of that and navigate life? So, and how all of those things kind of play and go together. And so what we also designed is a comprehensive social emotional learning and advisory curriculum. So there are over 200 advisory extension activities. There's also a principal toolkit with a school-wide license that is a school-wide communication tool and also a progress monitoring tool. There are also many family communications. If you want to send a text to families, you can. There are tutorials, rubrics, academic resources, and oh my gosh, so much more. So please feel free to check that out at secondstep.org as well. And that's our social emotional learning curriculum, pre-K through grade 8. And then I just want to touch on our child protection unit specifically, just because we were talking about that throughout the presentation in terms of initiatives. And a lot of states have Aaron's Law and have passed Aaron's Law or some rendition of Aaron's Law. And so child protection really does meet the needs of Aaron's Law and also to keep kids safe just in general. So, and that's what we want. So with that being said, the Child Protection Unit is an add-on program to our social emotional learning program. So ideally, we would like you to teach them together. So you teach the Skills for Learning unit, you may teach the empathy unit of our social emotional learning program, and then teach child protection. So you're teaching those kind of skills for learning, those basic foundational skills, and then going into the child protection unit. And sometimes teachers in the classroom, a lot of times teachers in the classroom will teach the social emotional learning program, and then a counselor may come in and teach the child protection unit because the child protection unit is 6 lessons, but also has a comprehensive training component to it in terms of what you do in the school. So the principal or program coordinator has our first module. Every single adult in the building takes our second module, and then the third module is designed for teachers and counselors who will actually be teaching the program and also helping them become more familiar with the topics in the child protection unit. But again, it starts with child safety and then goes into child sexual abuse prevention in those 5 to 6 lessons. And then just so you know, there's a lot of professional development that comes with our program as well. So our training is included in the cost of the program, and it's all found online at secondstep.org. So there's a staff training toolkit for early learning, there's an interactive training K-5, and then there's middle school professional development and program training, also with professional learning as well. And then our child protection and bullying prevention unit online training that I've mentioned. And of course, we are here to help with anything that we can do to help you. So how do you implement these kind of programs? Just touching on that really quickly for you. Any social emotional learning program that you're going to implement, you want to implement with fidelity, which means to teach all of the lessons. Do something to reinforce those lessons every day. So practicing, reinforcing. Sometimes it's going to be a teachable moment. Sometimes it's going to be an actual call out of an activity. You might do a brain builder game multiple times during the week. You might play a different game. You might be reading a chapter book or read a story and talk about the social emotional skills of that student in that story, or you may have an actual story that somebody wants to tell in class. So, and then also engaging families. Families want to know what's going on in the classroom. So how can we engage them? And one of the ways that you can do that is the video I showed way at the beginning of the presentation in terms of the what and why this is something that has become a priority for your school and your district. And then with that, we want you to see results. We want you to see impact. We want you to see the effect of these kind of programs or these skills with your students. So we want to help you create successful learners. We want to empower educators, address the whole child, and then ultimately improve academics, because we know that test results are, again, at the forefront. And so how can we support you in getting the results that you need in terms of teaching that whole child, but also getting the test scores that you want in terms of academics, and supporting everyone in that endeavor. So our final video is going to play for you.
The idea that I can improve kids' lives with respect to social and emotional learning makes me feel valuable. I love literature, but I didn't get into teaching because I love books. I got into teaching because I love kids.
We're impacting the world as a teacher, and I think that's great responsibility, and it's great to see the impact that we do have on these students.
We are seeing an increase in academics and academic success, as well as a decrease in negative behaviors. It's given us an opportunity to have those conversations with teachers about when would you send a behavior to the office versus what you can handle in your classroom. And it's empowered them to be able to handle things within their own classroom setting without disrupting that academic environment.
It gives them confidence that they have a set of tools and capacities to approach kids who struggle.
With the kids having better behavior, you're not stopping your lessons every 5 seconds and getting them back on track. You can get a whole lesson in. You can then get to the fun stuff, the experiments or the hands-on in every lesson.
The kids are embracing the songs. Kindergarten teachers are saying the kids love the belly song. And so there's just fun things like that make it fun to learn.
Just forming these relationships that you know in some way you're changing these students' lives and you're really making a difference.
Establishing that relationship is so crucial, because a lot of the time these kids, as they get a little older, they push the boundaries. They don't look at the teacher as that person that they'll listen to everything about.
I carry my feelings on my shoulders sometimes, so if I ever get mad, I stop and breathe, and it helps me calm myself down.
I feel really proud if I see them use these skills outside, or they tell me, oh, I used this at home today, That shows me that they're gonna be a good citizen as they grow up.
We need to think about what kind of world we want to build and what kind of future we want for the students across the country, so that we build toward a world that we all want to be a part of.
None of it would work if it weren't for the teachers. Because of their work and dedication and their belief in the systems that we're building, that's why our school is the school that it is today.
So thank you so much. Again, please connect with us. We are here to support you. We're here to help. I can stick around for just a couple more minutes if there's some questions. And if you need some, just let us know how we can help. Both of our email addresses are here. You can also call our 1-800 number, which is right here, and support. And we have a client support services team who is willing to answer any questions as well, and can also transfer you to us or whomever you might need. So I just appreciate your time today. Appreciate all the work you're doing. There is a recording of this that will be sent out, and also, so if you want to share it, and then the PDF will be sent to you in a follow-up email with most likely my name. Again, I'm Kate Tobias, and we're here to help you. So,
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.